When we mention the word Seagull, obviously in the context of watches, the mind usually goes to the famous 1963 mechanical chronograph. Now, I think the brand name is pretty much synonymous with that watch at this stage. But us watch nerds know that the brand, which was called the Tianjin Watch Factory, was actually founded in China in 1955 and is the world's largest manufacturer of mechanical movements, which means that they make slightly more models than the 1963 for you and me. Bear with me here because I'm trying to prove a point here. It's all about perspective. So Seagull is the only brand on Aliexpress which has proper history. Sure, not as old as Seiko or the other brands, but by today's standards, 1955 was a long time ago. Now, in other words, Seagull have been around the watch game longer than pretty much all the watch brands on Aliexpress. I mean, pretty much then they're older than Aliexpress itself. So in that case, for all you people that keep saying that San Martin is better, think about it. It's all about perspective. Now that you've heard that story for the 67th time, let's talk about the watch that we're going to take a look at today, which is the 819.12.607. And yes, you heard and saw that correctly. In case you forget that, it's on the case back of the watch. But now, that's kind of funny because with all that experience behind that I kept saying about Seagull having, they just couldn't come up with better naming for their models, could they now? It's a bit strange, isn't it? But in all seriousness, at $89 at the time of writing on the AliExpress store, affiliate link down below next to that like and subscribe button, you really can't go wrong with a watch like this. Why do I keep saying that if there are tons of watches on AliExpress at the same price that you could go for with different set of specs or with specs that are more familiar to you and me? Well, a huge percentage of those watches are either divers or field watches or GMT watches. And this, to me, kind of appeals to the first buyer of watches that has no clue what watch he likes, and he looks on the wrist and he needs something that just simply tells time kind of audience, if that makes any sense. In other words, this is a very minimalistic looking kind of design, which kind of reminds me of the Nomos Orion a little bit. Just have a look at the pictures side by side. But hey, what do I know? It's a 300 watch and has buttons for the indices, but it's just a coincidence, right? Right? And speaking of minimalistic, one thing that won't blow your socks off are the specs. I'll put these on the screen right now, and we'll start separating these and express our reviewer opinion, which obviously means a lot because I have a YouTube channel. Duh, and I know what I'm talking about, right? So let's start with the wearing experience. It gives me kind of mixed feelings, if I want to say. I mean, it sits flat on the wrist with 40 millimeters in that diameter, and to me, that size is kind of in my zone. Also, 46 millimeters lug to lug, it will open this up to smaller wrists, so it's a good combination of case diameter and a lug to lug size. For reference, my wrist is 6.3 inches in diameter, and to me, this is quite compatible with the size of the watch. And I think smaller wrist below 6.3 inch would actually still be able to wear this. To kind of translate what I was trying to say is that because of the mesh bracelet that comes on this watch, and we will touch on that in a little while, and the minimalistic look and also those polished surfaces, this kind of looks like a fashion watch. Nothing wrong with that, because I'd rather spend $89 on this than on the old Daniel Wellington lookalike or something within that category, which will probably cost a little more. That comparison has been overused, but you kind of know what I mean. So that being said, my overall opinion on the wearing and looks parts on the wrist is that it reaches out beyond the true enthusiast and would also appeal to the more, to the normies, as I like to call them, or the regular people that are not into watches like we are. And speaking of looks, the finishing on this is not bad for a watch that costs under $100. The brushing on the side of the case is okay. It's like it belongs on an $89 watch with a polished bezel and polished lugs. That in mind, if this is your only watch and you wear this day to day, you should be able to get away with a scratch or two. The top part of the case, or the bezel if you want to call it that, not so much, because it's kind of like it's highly polished. Something that kind of stands out to me or looks out of place is the contrast between the two finishes. I mean, it's okay to have contrast between polished and brushed surfaces, duh, but this just looks like it was made in two different parts of the world. Like they never spoke, the people that made, that finished the cases. It just looks a little off, which again, is something to expect for the price. Something that I wasn't expecting, because I don't normally talk about these, and it's also a positive if you ask me, but doesn't actually mean that much, is the addition of a signed crown on a watch that costs $89. And you've heard this on and on and on, but I'm mentioning this because this has the S logo on it. And I think you definitely know where I'm going with this. Seiko, I am looking at you. Just look how easy it is to make an S on the crown. And this watch costs $89, all included, okay? So just look at it. The dial, pretty minimalistic in design, as you may have heard me say that before. Not much going on. It's covered by a sapphire crystal. This is according to the spec list on Aliexpress. I don't have a diamond tester, but I did the water drop test and that works. But what I'm saying is that they have been known to kind of, omit some things or in the past and just not mention things like this in the past. AR coating, again, it doesn't say anything anywhere. I can't really tell. But if you ask me, if I don't mind it on a Hamilton that costs, the lack of it, that costs 5 times more than this, I can just live without this here. In terms of dial options, you only have 2 colors to choose from, black or white. And to me, on this style of watch, it's enough. The text is kept to a minimum. Honestly, I don't really see what else you can put here, and just for the sake of having it text. And honestly, I like the little detail at the 6 o'clock that says China made. So you always remember that this is made in China. Now we come to the interesting part, which is the P-lume, or the lack of lume in general. I mean, there's absolutely nothing. You wouldn't normally encounter lume on this style of watch, so in this case, I'll let it slide. My advice would be to turn on the light at night like the rest of the people, in case you want to look at the time. It's pretty straightforward. Don't rely on your watch. So in this case, let's just swiftly move along, because there's nothing to see here, not even lume. See right there? If we turn the watch around, we get to see the automatic ST17 movement powering this in all its glory. Specs on the screen right now. To me, this is a relatively cheap movement, but it will do the job. I like the fact that it's thin, which makes it perfect for this style of watch. Now, what I don't like is the fact that it runs at plus 28 seconds per day. The thing is that I can't even find the tolerances online, so I'm not able to tell you how far off it is. 28 seconds for any sort of standards is a lot. In case anyone knows, feel free to just let me know in the comment section down below. I mean, it's not the end of the world. Like, who checks their time on their watch anyway nowadays? Am I right? I mean, you have your smartphone for that. But in all seriousness, this is one of the major risks with these watches. You never know how the movement will turn up. So my advice is, if it's running at 20-28 seconds, like in this case, just don't worry about it. Just enjoy the watch and don't really think about these things that much. It's under $100, I mean, you can live with it. And the final piece of the puzzle is the strap. It comes with 2 in the box, a mesh and a croc style. Now, without sounding too harsh, the genuine leather croc style is literally made out of wood. It feels like it's made out of wood. It's so stiff, and I didn't even bother putting it on. So the mesh in this case is your best option, or if you want to swap it for something else, 20mm lugs should be perfectly fine. You'll have plenty of options. The mesh is not the best quality, but it is adjustable and it suits the watch. And best case scenario, again, you can just swap it for something else. Bottom line, guys, is that we get so hyped, in my opinion, about specs that we forget to enjoy the watches for what they are. And this is the perfect example. I'm happy that brands like Seagull still make watches at this price point for us to enjoy. Even on Aliexpress, that it is or it isn't some sort of homage. So with that in mind, I will leave you on that. That was my take on the Seagull long model number that I cannot remember. Let me know in the comment section down below what experience you have with Seagull, and I'm sure most of you watching this video have or have had at one point the chronograph and still love it. That's an iconic watch within the watch world. Even people that spend much more money on watches will have one of those. They can still appreciate them. That's the beauty about watches and Seagull in general. Thank you very much for watching. Click a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't so, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.